Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Kay Cote. I am your podcast host here in Central Texas at Action Coach. And today I have Roger Pecina, CEO and co-founder of eVehicles on the show as my guest. So today we're going to be talking about his business, his journey to business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share a sneak peek to what it's really like to build and operate a business. If this is your first time on our channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get episodes just like this one. Welcome to the show, Roger. I'd love to hear a little bit about you and your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So here at Eve, we've been developing something called drone as a first responder. Imagine in the near future, when you call 911, the first thing that dispatch sends to the call is a drone. It arrives within 3 minutes, and it allows dispatch to know what's the right resources to send to that call, whether it's police, fire, or emergency services, and how to more effectively solve that call and also to save the city money, but more importantly, lives.
That's incredible. I was looking on your website a little bit before our call, and I thought this is such an ingenious idea. And, I'd like to hear a little bit of how did that come about? Tell us a little more.
Absolutely. My background is it's in drone development and product development. So before I started this company, I was working as a lead mechanical engineer for a guy by the name of Colin Gwen, and Colin's really famous in the drone industry because he started DJI North America, and he actually helped launch something called the Phantom One and also the Inspire One into the marketplace. And so uh so yeah, I worked on a lot of drones for him. The first drone I worked on was back when I was in college more than 11 years ago. I built my College of Engineering's first working drone, and yeah, I always kind of like wanted to build my own drone company. So even 10, 11 years ago when I was a student, I was trying to do it, but I really didn't know what I was doing. I was just a young man trying to build a robot company and just trying to make it work. So working under Colin really helped focus my energy and exactly what it would take to build a company and a drone company. We were actually working on a different drone. It was a delivery drone, and it was called the Skyrunner. And I was really passionate about it. I really wanted to deliver that Happy Meal to your front door and the Chipotle burrito. Um, the thing is, there's a lot of work that goes into a drone delivery company, and you definitely need to have a lot of capital to be able to do it properly. It's one of the reasons why companies like Amazon and Google and Zipline are entering into that space. It could be a very big business, but I do feel that there's a lot of more friction in starting a drone delivery company than there is starting a public safety drone company. And so we met this police officer. His name was John Buell. He's now on the team. He's our VP of partnerships. And him and our old boss, Colin, like they're actually friends. So a lot of people don't know this, but the first police station in America that was using DJI drones, and DJI is like the market leader in consumer enterprise drones. They have something like 70% market share. So like 3 out of every 4 drones sold in the world are DJIs. Is kind of insane. Um, but yeah, so like Colin being the CEO of DJI North America, John, who works at APD at the time, really wanted to use that new technology. So APD was really early in using drone technology. Like I said, they might have been the very first police station in the country using drone technology. And so I meet John. This was a couple of years ago, working on the delivery drone. We were also working on this other little drone that we were working on for the Department of Defense through a hackathon that we won. It was called the Crow with a C. Remember that name? It's going to come up later. And yeah, John was just telling us of how bad 911 wait response times were getting in Austin. I'm actually from here. I grew up here, been here since the Reagan administration. And Austin used to be such a safe city. Like my parents would leave the front door unlocked, our car unlocked, nothing would get stolen. We probably had maybe one homicide every 2 weeks, maybe once a month sometimes. There was very, very little violent crime in the city. Now there's a homicide every day, and it's just that the city's really changed. We're now the 10th largest city in America, Austin is, and
Mhm.
he was just telling me all of these issues. So we started talking about what it would take to solve that big problem. And it was going to be a drone. John had been in the drone space for like 10 years, and he was kind of describing what he felt the drone for public safety should be. And we talked a lot of his insights and, stories to be able to design the Crow. We renamed it with a Q now. And yeah, that's kind of like how the business got started. We're deploying with our first police station in South Austin in the city of Bee Cave this summer. So this summer, around July, August, if you call 911 in Bee Cave and you're on the road, they're sending a drone, which is kind of cool.
That is incredible. I think that can just like give so much information back to the police station on, what happened and get people to safety and like really help the community. So I'm really excited to like see where that goes. You mentioned you have, some people on your team. I'd love to hear who are some of your teammates. You have employees right now, or
Yeah, yeah,
what's that look like?
absolutely. So as of right now, we are 8 full-timers, and then we have about 5 part-timers. And we're hiring right now, actually. We're trying to get more engineers in the building. Um, so the team was started with me. It all started like with this drone I was working on for a UT, and it was a hydrogen fuel cell drone that they wanted to test a new technology on how the hydrogen was made for Army research labs. And during that effort, I was able to land a partnership with UT and get an office space on JJ Pickle, and we did a standard research agreement where we provide funding. They give us an intern. We were able to use their offices and everything. So that started, and I met Dan, my co-founder, and my first co-founder, and he actually worked for Colin as well, but in another company called Gel Blaster, the toy water gun company, and like me and another employee of Gwen Partners, which was Gwen's robotics consulting firm where I worked as the lead mechanical engineer. Uh, Summer of 2020, we actually designed the first Gel Blaster Surge for Kickstarter. It was like 3D printed on my dining room table back then in June, July. Um, and Dan was like one of the head of the sales team there at Gel Blaster, and we had kind of heard about each other, and like during one of Colin's mixers where he likes to have all his startups, like different people meet, and like he's like, oh hey, I heard you did the Gel Blaster Surge with Eric Davis, and I was like, yeah, that was me. And yeah, we kind of hit it off. He came to the office at UT. He was like, what are you working on here? And I kind of sold him the future. I was like, drone delivery, this and that, and one day you're gonna call like whatever, and like it's gonna get delivered to your front door within 5 to 10 minutes. And I was like really passionate, really believed in that future. And Dan was like, how do I join this? And I kind of told him, I was like, yo man, like I'm trying to fundraise right now, finishing the product. If you can help me with the fundraising, that'd be great. So that was basically how we started working together, and we just started like basically raising funding, finishing the engineering. We got more engineers on the team. We got Nico, who's now our CTO. Originally, he was our lead robotics engineer, a really brilliant engineer. He actually got his 2 master's degree, one from a university in France, where he's originally from, and another one from UT Austin. He actually worked in the same lab where Apptronics, the bipedal robotics company, got started. And in fact, one of his professor, Luis Sentis, Dr. Sentis, he's one of the co-founders of that company. So Nico was like, he got bit by the robot bug early, just like myself. So really passionate about it. Like ours was like flying robots. His was more bipedal. Honestly,
Mhm.
bipedal robotics is way more difficult than drones, at least in my opinion. Um, but yeah, no, so Nico joined, Mustafa, who's now our COO, he was an engineer as well. He had a background in the Navy, nuclear Navy, once had like 150 people report to him on some aircraft carrier. So like at one point in time, we were like, you know what, he would be a good COO because like he knows how to manage more than 100 people. No one here's ever managed more than 100 people, let me tell you. So Mustafa took that role, and then we also have Marcos, who's our chief strategy officer. He's also a co-founder. Um, he basically runs like the defense side of our business, where we're getting grants from the Air Force, from the Navy, from the Army. We actually got a grant from the Air Force through AFWorks to design a drone for the American warfighter. Really great grant. We're going to be kicking off that effort this next month. And then John Buell joined the team. He's the police officer who I mentioned started the drone department at APD. He's our vice president of partnerships, and he works with Dan. He's basically helping bring in the police stations, in the sense of like on our customer waiting list. And and then yeah, we have a bunch of part-timers, engineers helping us out with like our technology and whatnot. And we have like UT interns as well. And it's just it's yeah, like I said, it's about like 12 of us, and just working really hard to build this future that we all believe in.
That is very cool. I like how that team formulated, just that organic growth. And tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about your role. What do you do in the company on the day to day?
So yeah, I like to build drones. Like I said, the drone bug bit me pretty early. I'm really happy when I'm working on a drone. It's like I feel like when I'm most like it's like a pig in mud, if you will. Um, but uh, but yeah, no, as like my role as CEO has like evolved over time, and as the team's been getting bigger, as we're onboarding more and more engineers, I like to give more of that responsibility to Nico and team. And just focus on things like fundraising, like selling the vision of the company, what we're doing, making connections, um, and basically helping Dan raise our seed round, which right now we're basically in full swing. We're trying to get our lead VC. We're trying to raise about $6 million dollars right now,
Hmm.
and our pre-seed was incredibly successful. Capital Factory actually gave us our first investment on our pre-seed safe note,
Hmm.
and we just wrapped that up this month actually, and it's been really great. We actually were able to get a couple of Silicon Valley VCs on our cap table, and that's really helped us a lot, in the sense of getting us introductions for our next round of funding.
It seems like you're having a lot of success when it comes to marketing for even just like gathering the seed money and doing the Kickstarters. I like to dive into a little about your marketing, which is
Mhm.
so vital to businesses. So how did you find success in the marketing for your seed money?
Yeah, so like in terms of like getting a solid pitch deck, like the business is like the business idea is good. And like honestly, like it's never been like oh man, I don't think that's gonna work. Like, a robot showing up to a 911 call in 3 minutes, that doesn't sound like the future. Like everyone's pretty much on the same page. This is gonna happen. So really it's the execution, the technology, navigating the regulations.
Hmm.
Because we operate with the FAA, we have to basically check off a bunch of boxes for our drone. Like it needs to have a parachute because we're flying over people. We're
Hmm.
trying to become something called a Category 3 aircraft, which means when the drone loses power and the parachute deploys, the amount of energy it deposits on the ground when it makes it to the ground level needs to be less than 24 foot-pounds of energy. So things like that, like
Hmm.
basically just trying to make sure we check all the boxes. Um, and in a sense, so it's a very exciting business, but it's also very difficult. In fact, before I left Colin's operation, the founder of DJI North America, he looked at me in the eyes as I was leaving his organization. He was like, Roger, drones are hard.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, Colin, I've been building drones for 10 years. I think I know a little something about the drones. So they're really difficult, let me tell you. Like there's just so many dimensions into things that go into that. So we built the drone and we built our station and we built the cloud like fleet management that's managing the drones, managing the stations. I
Hmm.
mean, it's a technology heavy company, and
Mm-hmm.
for that reason it's taken a lot of capital to get to
Mm-hmm.
this point. I mean, we're not necessarily doing a SaaS mobile app like on like iOS or like on Android or something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't knock out this technology over a weekend just because it's really difficult. So it took
Mm-hmm.
time to get to this point, but we have an MVP product, and we're really excited to deploy with our first customer in Bee Cave. But
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, no, it's definitely been a journey to get to this point for sure.
Yes, for sure. Do you have any like competition currently, or what's that look like for you?
Yeah, we have one competitor that's very similar to us, out of New York.
Mm-hmm.
The company's called Aerodome, and yeah, like different philosophies on how to get to the final solution, for sure. Um, they're focusing more on their fleet management platform. They
Mm-hmm.
haven't actually built their own drone and station. They actually contracted that out to another company. I definitely believe in the full stack solution. I think like companies like Apple have really like shown that to be a value add, where you develop the hardware, the software, and the ecosystem on which that product works is usually a very great customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
And and we obsess about the customer. It's one of the reasons why one of our first hires was a cop, because like, we want to make sure our customer like loves the service and
Mm-hmm.
loves using it. And it's a value add too. I mean, these things aren't cheap. They cost a lot of money. It's a subscription service. We're robot as a service. We don't sell our hardware or our software. We basically do it on a lease.
Okay.
Um, and the reason we do that is so we can improve the technology, because the technology is always, it needs to be on edge. It needs to be getting better.
Yeah.
Like John has told us stories about how like every generation of drone platform technology that APD has bought is like sitting in some closet in some building, uh, because it's like no one here is running a Dell Pentium 4 processor with Windows XP anymore. Like everyone's on the current, like,
Yeah.
platform. So the ability to be improving the technology is really important to us, because we feel like that is going to improve the customer experience by quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so in a sense, we really want to make sure that the drone is always the best in class in drone as
Mm-hmm.
a first responder. And we think about things like that. And the way you're best in class is, you're basically, all your customers are asking for more, and like you have a line out the door, wanting to use the product and service. So so yeah, and that's like why we think we're going to beat our competition.
Mm-hmm.
um, we definitely think in Texas we're very, very solid with the network we have. Like John pretty much trained nearly every police station in Texas on drone education.
Okay.
Um, and for that reason, we already have interest in Houston, San Antonio,
Mm-hmm.
Dallas. Like, this is going to be a very, like, obviously we want Austin first. But once like the technology is working, rolling it out for statewide, like, it's only going to take us a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But I seriously believe that if we have a solid foundation here in Texas, we're gonna have a great business, and obviously we'll expand outside of the great Lone Star State. But I'm sorry, excuse me, four of the 10 largest cities in America today are in Texas. Like, you have
Mm-hmm.
Houston, you got San Antonio, you got Dallas, and you got Austin at number 10. So if you are the market leader in Texas, you are probably the market leader like in the country, likely.
That's very true. And I'd love to learn, how are you reaching, like, who are your ideal clients? You mentioned police officers. And how are you reaching them? Like, how are you getting the word out about your business?
Yeah, so like I said, like John is like really well known in the industry. It's exposure and getting into police stations, believe it or not, there's not a lot of friction there. Like
Okay.
so many times I've just listened to John like pick up a phone and just call someone and like, "Oh, hey John, how's it going?" I'm like, "Oh, who is that, John?" That was the chief of police for Harris County Sheriff Office. I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, wow, like, so thing about police, like, it's a really relationship based business. Like Roger the engineer, like, walking up to APD HQ like through the front door, selling them a drone. That was going to be really difficult, like, to have any credibility in that world. So definitely John, having him is a definitely value add. So John just like he runs this side program called Drone Pilot Inc. So he'll have like folks from like Bastrop, from like Georgetown, from Cedar Park, from like different like cities around Texas just come to these classes. And there's always a slide where he's talking about the crow, and it gets people really excited because cops like love to see what's like around that next corner. Like what's the future
Yeah.
technology we're gonna be working with? So like when they see that, they're like, oh man, we got to get on that list. And I'm like, yeah, you definitely do. And yeah, so we're really excited about the future for sure. Yeah, we really think this is one of those technologies that you're really going to be able to see changing like everyday life. Like,
Hmm.
it's like, sometimes someone does like I don't know, like a software company and they did something really great. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to devalue it, but it's behind several layers of technology that you never hear about it. You're like, there's no exposure. You're like, oh yeah, that company did so and so. But with us, like you will be walking the street, like, and all of a sudden you look in the sky and you'll see the drone with the little red and white sirens like going to a 911 call, and you're like, oh wow, that's like gonna go and help someone. Like, oh, like, I
Yeah.
really believe that every American, before it's like said and done, like you will have a story about the crow and how it helped you.
Hmm.
And I think everyone's going to be able to experience that technology because everyone calls 911 at least once in their life. Like it's a thing that's going to happen. So
Hmm.
like just making sure that experience is as nearly as positive as it can be, with
Hmm.
quick response and hopefully de-escalation. Like I would love more than anything that the drone arrives and that's all we had to do. Like didn't have to send a cop, didn't have to send a
Yeah.
firefighter, emergency services, like that would be great. Obviously, like, there's going to be situations where you do need an EMS, you need a fire truck and things like that. But honestly, like I really, yeah, like we just really want to help people here and we really want to change the world. And yeah.
I dig that. And we've covered so much ground. And I think there's just so many great nuggets of information in this episode. So, to anyone watching or listening to this, definitely check it out a couple of times and pull those great nuggets out. As we're kind of wrapping up, I'd like to dive into a rapid fire section. So, these are four
Okay.
questions that are just answer top of mind. And
Mhm.
then we'll get into our final questions. Are you ready for some rapid fire?
I am.
Awesome. So, our first question for you is, what is the key to success for you?
Patience.
Mm-hmm. Number two is, what is one piece of advice you could give to other business owners?
Um, be an optimist.
That's a good one for sure.
Yeah.
Um, the third one is, what is a book or any piece of content, a podcast, anything that you've read most recently?
I just finished reading Gordon's book, Startup Success. He's one of the co-founders of Capital Factory. It's a pretty good book. I'd recommend it.
Nice. And our last question is, if you had to choose only one area of business that you could rapidly improve tomorrow, what would it be?
Business. I'd say communication. Like usually I feel like communication is so important in a business. Everyone being on the same page. You'd be surprised how many organizations that people are in different chapters and like, being on the same page where like everyone understands what's going on, what needs to get done. That is super important. I feel like it's even more important for startups, for
Hmm.
sure. Is the only thing a startup really has is speed. You can just move
Yeah.
faster than people like IBM and like Google can make a decision a day quicker, but being able to communicate, make sure everyone knows what's going on is super important.
Communication is key. So this has been such a fun interview. And before we get to our final question of the day, how can people learn about you? Feel free to share any contact info or social media handles.
Yeah, absolutely. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn. It's Eve, like all lowercase, vehicles, like a car you drive, and corporation, or just put Eve vehicles. You'll be able to find our social media handle. If you want to get a hold of me, my email is really easy. It's Roger, like the rabbit, Roger at evehicles.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Roger. And for our final question today, what is most inspiring to you today?
Huh. How people really believe in things. I think so like on Mondays I have a short 10-minute one-on-one with everyone on my leadership team that runs the company. And 2023 was a rough year for us. I'm not gonna lie. 2024 has been great. I think it's because it's the year of the dragon. I was born in 1988. It's a good year for us. But yeah, like when people really believe in things, there's so much that comes with it. It's like the ability to be resilient, to persist, to be an optimist, to be excited about life. Like when you really believe in something, you're gonna get through really tough times. If you don't believe in something, the moment the going gets tough, you're gonna check out and leave. So I think it's really important to believe in something for sure.
That's so powerful. Well, Roger, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today.
Thank you so much, Kay. I appreciate it.